Welcome to Gadgets with Gurman. Today we're talking about these right here. These are the new Microsoft Surface products. In front we have the Surface Pro with LTE, as well as the new Surface Books, the 15-inch and the 13-inch. This is the LTE model of the Surface Pro. Originally came out in June a few months ago, but now they're coming out with an LTE one for business customers through enterprise channels. A lot of Bloomberg viewers really focus on the enterprise channel, so it's important for them. But for mass consumers, there's a version of this coming out in the first half of 2018. Microsoft's not getting any more specific, but it is coming out. So we're going to dive really deep into the LTE model, how it compares to the iPad Pros with LTE, and we're also going to take a look at the new Surface Book 2s and how those compare to the latest versions of Apple's MacBook Pros. But first, please send in your questions about these, anything to have to do with these, the Mac hack from earlier this week, anything about the iPhone 10, and especially about how the LTE works on the Surface Pro, and I'll answer them throughout the show. Getting a lot of questions already. And also, if you haven't already, please sign up for notifications on facebook.com/gadgetswithgurman so you know and get an alert every time we're on live so you don't miss a beat. So let's dive into the Surface Pro with LTE first. So let's switch to the other camera, and I'm going to dive in here on the Surface Pro. Now, for those unfamiliar about the Surface Pro concept, this is most similar to the original Surface RT that came out over 5 years ago, the original iPad-like device that had the attachable keyboard, and it sort of set the precedent for the iPad Pro. Now, the way it works, it's basically two components here. You have the tablet itself with all the technology and all the batteries, the processors, the chips, and you have the kickstand here. But it also connects to this keyboard, which is sort of where the concept for the iPad Pro Smart Keyboard came from. Now, we'll dive into the pricing differences, but first I want to dive into actually how to set up LTE on this device. Before I do that, just so you can see, there is a SIM card slot on the back side of the Surface Pro LTE right here behind the kickstand. So let's adjust that. I'm going to put this back into the dock. Let's switch to the other camera here and take a dive into the Surface Pro. Sorry, technical difficulty here. There we go. Okay, here we are in the interface here. You can see is the full windows and whatnot. Now on the iPad, in order to set up LTE, you go into the general settings menu, then there's a cellular data button, and you can either buy a pack of data, maybe for a month. Originally, I believe they had a 15-day pack as well. The prices vary based on your carrier, or you can pop in a SIM. The interesting thing about this one is that there are two SIM cards. There's a physical SIM card, so if you want to take the SIM card out of your iPhone, your Samsung phone, or whatever phone you have, pop it in there and use the cellular data on your cellular account, you can do that. You can just use like a toothpick or a paper clip in order to pop that in and put that in. But there's also an embedded SIM card which can also connect to many LTE advanced bands around the world. So you'd be able to connect to LTE networks through any of the major carriers in the US as well as abroad. Now I want to give you a little peek to show you how you set it up, because that's the most important thing about an LTE device. How do you get connected to the internet? Right? So in the little Wi-Fi toggle down there, you can see there's a cellular data toggle right there as well. And at the bottom, you have cellular, airplane mode, mobile hotspot, other options there. So you can click the cellular data with LTE toggle there, and then you can connect with an LTE data plan. So you can click that, and it actually takes you to the Windows Store, and you can buy packs of data for this particular device. So this is to the embedded SIM card, not the external SIM card. And what you can do here is you can actually buy a pack of data. Now, this data is being sold through Transitel, and it's a data provider in the US, works over 4G and LTE. You can buy a 1-day pack here for $7, a 30 days 3 gigabyte pack, a 1 gigabyte 15 days pack. So it's sort of similar, I guess, to the different options you get on GoGo if you're on an airplane. So there are some LTE options through here. They also sell Wi-Fi plans. You can check your balances and whatnot. And this is all sold through the Windows Store. So if you want to buy it at an ad hoc basis, you can do that with the LTE as the iPads originally offered. But you can also put your SIM card in or attach it to your T-Mobile, Verizon, Sprint, or AT&T account. And the way to do that is you pop back into different network settings here. You go to cellular, and you can choose between your two SIM cards. And let's say you want to go to the embedded SIM card. No, that's the physical SIM card. The embedded SIM card. Manage eSIM profiles. Let me choose Don't Roam here. Manage eSIM profiles, and it gives you your SIM card information. It gives you the EID, which is basically a unique identifier code for the embedded SIM card inside the machine itself. You plug that information into your carrier system, you either call them up to give it to them, or you do it through your carrier's website, and that will be able to connect the device to your cellular plan. So overall, it's a pretty easy experience to either pop in a SIM card, start using your LTE data, or connecting to your account of your existing wireless provider for your phone, or on top of that, being able to buy data packs on an ad hoc basis. So the LTE capabilities here in terms of actually connecting to a network, getting online, are actually pretty versatile compared to other offerings on the market. Now we have a question coming in here. Whoa, wait a minute. 7 years since the first cellular iPad, and this is the first Surface Pro with LTE? Well, actually, it's not the first Surface. It's the first Surface Pro with LTE, of course, because the Surface Pro just came out in June, but it's not the first Surface with LTE. In 2015, they had an LTE model. No one really talked about it. The reason we're talking about this now is because this is an additional model. It's actually very interesting. A little criticism here. So the Surface Pro, the original model, came out in June, about 6 months ago. It's almost December now. And this is actually going on sale December 1st for enterprise and business channel users. Consumers won't be able to get their hands on it until the first half of 2018. Compare that to something like an iPad. The first iPad, there was a 30-day, about a month delay between the Wi-Fi only version and the 3G at the time cellular version. After that, all the iPad cellular versions and the Wi-Fi versions, they came out almost simultaneously, give or take a couple of weeks. But this one in particular, is a very long delay. That, if this comes out in, let's say, in June, that's about a year delay. So that's 1 year for consumers after the consumer version of the original Surface Pro came out. And LTE, I think, is a driving factor for buying one of these devices. If you want one device, a laptop, a tablet that does everything for you, you want a device to have LTE in it. But there's also personal hotspot and features like that. So it really comes down to the uses. I can see why this is good for enterprise uses. And definitely, if you're going to get an all-in-one machine, an iPad Pro or a Surface Pro to be your only computer, I think you can't go wrong with getting the LTE model. However, there are drawbacks to getting the LTE model in addition to that waiting lead time. There is a price difference. So this is $150 more than the regular Surface Pro. And I'll dive into the pricing now because we're talking about it and we're getting lots of questions about it. But this machine comes in two configurations. There's a 4 GB of RAM model with 128 gigs of storage, as well as an 8 GB of RAM model with 256 gigabytes of storage. And those price at, $1,150 and $1,450 here, which is $150 more per model compared to the non-LTE models. Now, the prime comparison here, like I said, is the LTE iPad Pros. Now, the LTE iPad Pros, I did the math. Those don't come with any of the accessories, right? So this one, just to be clear here, when you buy this product, and those are for the $1,150 and $1,450 prices I quoted, all you're getting is this. You're getting this in the box with the power adapter, your manuals, and all that. You're not getting the keyboard, the touch type cover keyboard, or the pen, which I actually have here. Those cost extra. So the pen cost $100 and the keyboard cost $160. If you do the math and add everything up, what you're getting here is an incredibly expensive machine. So adding the premium of the keyboard, adding the premium of the pen, it's coming out together at either $1,410 or $1,710, depending on if you're going for the 4 gig of RAM and 128 gigabytes of storage model versus the 256 gigabytes of storage and 8 gigabytes of RAM model. Now, altogether, what does that mean? Well, I also did the math on the iPad Pro. So if you buy the middle tier iPad Pro, which comes out to 256 gigabytes of storage, 12.9-inch screen with the smart keyboard and the Apple Pencil, that comes out to about $1,350, which is about approximately, give or take, $350 less. So you can get a fully loaded iPad Pro LTE 12.9-inch with the pencil and the smart keyboard for about $350 less than you can get for a fully loaded version of this. Now, obviously, it's not an apples to apples comparison. It's not an apples to oranges comparison either. I think it's a 1A, 1B type of thing. The iPad Pro, pretty capable. iOS 11 has a lot of new functionality for managing multiple windows, but obviously you have the full Windows experience on here, and a lot of people prefer Windows to Mac, but obviously a lot of people prefer Mac to Windows as well. So it really comes down to what's your operating system preference, how much do you want to spend. Obviously there's a bit more capability here. If we're looking at the LTE capabilities overall, I checked it out. The bands are pretty similar, so you're going to get good LTE performance on both. I haven't taken out this LTE in the real world. I've been using an LTE iPad since the first LTE iPad came out back in 2012, and the cellular ones before that from since 2010. The experience on those were pretty good. Haven't had any hiccups. We're going to have to get this in the field and use it when it comes out for the consumer version to really see how the LTE performance works. They have not done a lot of LTE products. Obviously, Microsoft doesn't have its own phone line, so we'll have to see how this turned out. Obviously, Apple has experience with the phones, so they know how to make cellular connectivity work. So we'll have to see about this one in the field. Now, we have a lot more questions coming in here. Any more Apple events this year, and what do you think the iPad Pro needs to get in order to catch up with the Surface Pro? Well, no more Apple events this year. It's already December. I doubt they're going to have one. The HomePod not coming out now till early 2018, which means it can come out anytime between January and April 2018 if they stick to that. But back to the more relevant question, what do I think it needs to add? Well, iOS 11 was a really big step forward. But let's switch to the other camera. I want to show you some of the stuff that you can do here with the Surface laptop. And you can see the main thing here, why it's really computery, why you're able to be really productive, is because of the multiple windows that you're able to drag and drop at the same time. So you can put your windows side by side however you want it. You can open up your applications. You have all sorts of gaming stuff in here. It's a true laptop interface with a keyboard, being able to throw the pen in, and as well as using the trackpad, and that makes it really convenient. I think the trackpad adds a lot. Will Apple ever add a new keyboard with a trackpad to the iPad? No, but something I think they can add is taking a step forward in terms of their window management, making another leap, being able to have not two windows side by side with a pull-over window, the slide over on the side, and a little PIP, picture-in-picture video module there, being able to have, dozens of windows open, dragging them around, closing them at will, having a little shelf here where you can pull content from your desktop onto here, making it a little bit easier to manage multiple windows. I think that's how it would take a step forward. Obviously, improvements in the keyboard shortcuts as well. Overall, I think iOS 11 is a big step, but obviously the Surface Pro, because it started with the concept of having the full Windows, but sort of making like a hybrid tablet type of deal, has really pushed the Windows OS forward on these types of computers. Obviously, there are two types of things. Apple likes to have their MacBook Pros and their iPad Pros completely separate entities. We'll see what they end up doing about that down the road if these continue to get more popular. More questions coming in here. How many hours of LTE battery life? That's a great question. So let's compare it to the iPad here. Now, the iPad Pro always has said that it gets 1 hour less of battery life for the LTE model. So the Wi-Fi onlys are 10 hours, and you get 9 hours on the LTE model. For this device, it's a similar situation. So the non-LTE model, the one that was released this past June, Microsoft quotes it at 13.5 hours. This one they quote at 12.5 hours. I haven't tested a lot of the battery life on this device yet because this is not even out yet. We haven't had it for a long time. This is just a brief first look, a first take on this device. So, I can't affirm those numbers, but what I can tell you is that they're saying there's going to be an hour difference between the Wi-Fi only and the LTE models. More questions coming in here. Speaking of battery life, is the iPhone X charging faster via a wired cable or a wireless cable? A little tangent here, but if you charge it with a USB-C to Lightning cable as well as a USB-C power brick from an iPad Pro or a MacBook or MacBook Pro, you're going to get much faster charging than inductive charging. You can see our episode on comparing the two from Gadgets with Gurman on our Facebook page from a few weeks ago, so be sure to check that out. Now, so you know everything about the Surface Pro LTE that there is to know now at this point. I want to take a look at these other new devices. These are the Surface Book 2. So I'm going to put this away, put this here, and let's drag in these, and let's switch the other camera, and we can take a look at these right here. Let me move the pens away. Okay, so this is the 13-inch Surface Book 2. This just came out about a week ago. It's a brand new. This is Microsoft's hot new top-of-the-line laptop. Now, the difference that a lot of people have been asking about is how does this compare to the Surface laptop that we had on Gadgets with Gurman about 6 months ago? Well, this one is more of a hybrid convertible type of situation as well. It has a detachable screen. The base here has most of the technology, most of the battery, but you do get a lot in this itself. So how do you detach it? Well, there's this button here. You click it, and it sort of will eject the screen. You can pull it off, and you have it as a tablet itself. Let's switch the other camera here so you can get a sense of size. And you can see this is what it looks like when I'm holding it. And it's, it's like a 13-inch, 12.9-inch iPad. This is about 12 inches in size. You can use the pen with it as well. Pairs wirelessly, and it's a tablet. And then if you want to use it as the computer, you put it in here. You dock it back, and you have it. Back and forth has the camera, has the Surface Book 2 compared to the first one, I'm told has an improved hinge. Let's zoom back around and we can dive into this a little bit more, why you would want something like this. So the big thing here about why it's detachable, why you attach it, is because the base here has a lot of power. And in terms of power, in terms of functionality, in terms of what kind of performance, and specifically for gaming, what you're going to get out of here, it's very comparable to the latest MacBook Pros. So in terms of pricing, a lot of people want to know how much does it cost compared to the MacBook Pro. This one is $1,499, so $1,500, and for that you get an Intel Core i5, 256 gigabytes of storage, and 8 gigabytes of RAM. That's similar specs to the MacBook Pro 13-inch without the touch bar. Obviously, Apple starts at 128 gigabytes for the 13-inch MacBook Pro without the touch bar, but give or take, this is very similar specs to that. The difference is obviously the detachable screen, the touchscreen interface. We're able to take the pen and you can launch things and touch things and do everything like that. Another cool addition this time around for the gaming fans out there is Xbox Live integration. So what you're able to do is connect a Bluetooth controller over the Xbox controller protocol. And I'm going to show you on this one because this one is better for gaming. And if you went to our downloads here, you can see we're downloading some games on here to test. You can see here we're downloading, Cuphead and Gears of War 4. So it's a full-fledged, and let's go to the other camera here while we talk about this. It's basically a full-fledged Xbox experience. It's not what you're going to get on the new Xbox One X 4K, but you're basically limited to the Intel processor that you have in here. Connect a headset, connect a controller, and you're getting a pretty good gaming machine here. And what you see here is Microsoft is leveraging its gaming prowess. They do some of the best consoles, very much up there with the Sony PlayStation. So if you're a gamer, this is something you definitely want to check out, especially if you're hardcore into the Xbox games. But in terms of raw performance, why would a person want a laptop like this? Well, I mean, this is not your laptop for browsing Facebook, just like you wouldn't buy a MacBook Pro just for browsing Facebook. But if you're doing, a lot of work in school, presentations, all sorts of stuff like that, blogging even, you're going to want to get something high in performance. And it basically comes down to what do you want out of a laptop? The prices are the same. The two best types of laptops in this premium category in terms of full-featured laptops, not Chromebooks or anything, in this $1,000 to high $2,000 price range. Definitely the MacBook Pros with and without the Touch Bar, as well as the Surface Book 2. So you're going to want to basically compare the two. Do you want one that's a convertible? Do you want one that you can pull the screen out in order to use it like a tablet? Do you feel like you want a tablet, but you would be saving money by buying one of these, a 2-in-1 where you can detach and reattach it, versus having to get an iPad Pro, an iPad Mini, plus a MacBook Pro with Touch Bar, which can add up, even higher. In terms of the build quality, it's pretty much like a Mac. I mean, it feels really good. It's aluminum. It's milled well. I was in their facilities in near Seattle and Redmond where they build these things, and we saw the different materials they use, the different ways they engineer it and design it. It's pretty high-end stuff. So in terms of build quality here, you're going to get a Mac-like experience for the most part, but running Windows, obviously, and deep into the Windows ecosystem. And we have more questions coming in here. Back to the LTE model, we're being asked about what colors will it come with. Well, it comes in this silver model for business users, but obviously the type covers, they come, I believe it was 4 or 5 different colors. $170, you can choose your color when you buy it. And again, I really think that it's a bit of a drawback, not only on Microsoft, but on the iPad Pros too, that these machines, they don't include the whole kit. The pen, the Apple Pencil, the type cover, the smart keyboard on the iPad Pro, those are big parts of the stories and the usability and the use cases for both the Surface Pro tablet as well as the iPad Pro. And it's really a shame that neither company has been able to work out a way to bundle everything together. You'd think with the LTE model, given the higher premium price anyways, they'd be able to throw in the pen or the keyboard. But we'll see when this comes out for the consumer version next year how they choose to bundle it. I really think that anyways, if you're getting a full-fledged iPad Pro with all the accessories, all the kit, getting a Microsoft Surface Pro with all the accessories, the pen and the keyboard, you're getting a laptop, but it's more of a hybrid. You can detach the keyboard and whatnot. This Surface Pro, to go back to this for a second, is basically what you would get if you want the most performance, the best gaming, detachability, touchscreen tablet hybrid interface, while also running Microsoft and using the Windows services. Now, a few more questions coming in here. Thoughts on the evolution in phones? We'll go after full screens. Well, we saw full screens on the iPhone 10. I think 5G, as I said on Twitter last night, as well as true wireless charging. I think that you're not going to be able to really go wrong with any of the phones in the market right now at the high end, but there is a way to go to really take us into that future, to really feel like we're in a world where we're in a completely futuristic environment. So I want to take another look at these just so you can have another look. Let's switch to the other camera so you can see the size differences here. This is the 15-inch Surface Book 2, but by the way, the 15-inch is a new screen size for the computer, and I will detach it so you can see the detachability mechanism here. So you just make the little pop sound, pull it out, use it as a tablet, pop it back in. The LTE Surface Pro right here, and the 13-inch Surface Book 2. So these were the latest Microsoft products from both here and now and in the future, coming out for consumers first half of next year, but for enterprise and business users December 1st. And the Surface Book 2s are available now. If you have any other questions, shout at me on Twitter, and we'll be sure to answer them as soon as we have the answers. So thanks, and join us next week. Thanks.